যে আনিল প্রেমাদান পরম কাচু
Today we are at the Fiji Advanced College of Education. Camera.
Okay, good evening again. Guest speaker has arrived here this evening. And what we will do now is we will have a few minutes of chanting. The other speaker will come up and address the audience. And what we like to do when okay, sorry. Krishna We would like to ask if all of you, except for the devotees, everyone could maybe come to the front and sit close, so the devotees can sit back and allow them to hear our guest speaker. Our guest speaker, his name is Tamal Krishna Goswami. So we will give you a formal introduction so you can all understand exactly who this person is to us and who he can be to you as well.
So Gurudev also just graduated from a prestigious university, Southern Methodist University. Now, one wonder why Gurudev has gone to the university. Gurudev has acquired great knowledge about the Vedic knowledge, and in order to present this knowledge to the intellectuals, so it is necessary to have an access to these people. And he has also written several books, 7, 8 books, which he wanted to present to these people. Therefore, he has gone to the university and graduated in a comparative religious study. And in doing so, he graduated with a 4.0 GPA. One would wonder what 4.0 GPA is. That is the maximum grade you can achieve with honors. And that is actually with purpose. And the dean of the university has said that in his career of teaching, he has not found anybody that intelligent. He has also received a total of 12 awards for highest academic achievement in his study. And now, Sri Gurudev has also got an admission at the Cambridge University in UK to do PhD. And recently he has also got a book. I think the books are over there on the display. Those who are interested, which contain the answers of Sri Gurudev during his course of study which he wrote. So I'd like to now call Sri Gurudev to come on stage and talk on solutions to food scarcity, and also like to call on the Indian Students Association to put that in Sri Gurudev.
Pleasure to be here this evening and have this opportunity to address so many who are teachers and future teachers in Fiji. I wanted to speak this evening about the unseen hand of God. Fiji is a religious country. And in fact, the United States also is a religious country. 95% of the people in the United States say that they believe in God, which is a very large percentage. Even today, on the U.S. currency, it says, "In God we trust." Yet, as much as religion is important in the world, in many ways it is not the prevailing paradigm which guides the world today. Perhaps 500 years ago, religion shaped the direction of affairs. But with the coming of the scientific worldview, science has loomed more and more as the prevailing paradigm, which determines the way people think. One of the reasons why science has prevailed so strongly is because of its ability to predict or forecast events, particularly in the field of astronomy. Say 400 years ago, with the development of telescope, it was seen that the movement of the planets, the stars, could be determined very precisely. And not only that, but so many different events which were studied carefully could be predicted for the future. So that people began to develop a faith in science. Just as previously, people had a faith in religion. Religion was seen to be very important. No one would begin any important activity without first consulting some type of religious authority. Even today, important acts like marriage, birth, death, these things are always marked with the help of religious persons. But in the everyday events of our life, less and less religion is consulted because it's not seen to be necessary. For example, amongst primitive cultures, the beginning of the cultivating of crops was a religious rite. And when the time came to harvest the crops, there was some type of a religious activity performed. In fact, there are still public festivals or public holidays which are more or less established around the idea of the harvest of grains. But today, people don't really think that there's any need to make some sort of religious gesture in order to ensure the good harvest. Of course, here in Fiji now, we are suffering from a severe drought. Isn't that true? I have been told that because Fiji is still primarily a nation which exists on one type of crop, right? It's an economy which is very heavily dependent upon the sugar industry. And when the sugar crop fails, the economy goes into some severe problems. Well, it's not within the control of anyone sitting here, nor is it in the control of the farmers whether or not there's going to be a bountiful sugar crop. The fact is that the rains have not come. Now, in olden times, when I say olden times, let's say in the past, whichever nation you come from, that was, the past may be of a longer time or a shorter time. But in the past, when the rain did not come, what would you say would have been the cause? How would people have explained it? Can anyone in the audience say? I mean, what would you say people would have speculated? What is the cause that the rain has failed? Some primitive tribe. Let's say a primitive tribe in Africa. If there was no rain, what would be the cause? Nobody's going to answer? That the gods, and I think you're right in saying the gods, or the gods, right, might have been angry because of some, you said evil, right, evil action, or perhaps the failure to propitiate or satisfy the gods in some way. I think that's the correct answer. And it's not only a primitive tribe in Africa, but I think, even today, let us say in India, some people might answer like that. Some farmers might think that way. And in other parts of the world, they might have thought that way. Modern science would laugh at your answer. Right? They'd say, that's ridiculous. What God? Where's God? That's just, some, you have some old beliefs, superstitions that you're holding on to and thinking like that. It's very clear that the weather patterns have affected this. Rain doesn't come because of such and such cause. According to the meteorologists, they'll give their explanation. Or, someone will explain the effect of, what is the name of that? El Nino. They blame everything on El Nino. Poor El Nino gets the blame for everything that goes wrong in the world today. So, now, what is the difference between these two explanations? This is the point I want to get to. I want to begin with this point. What is the difference between the scientific explanation and the explanation which you gave on behalf of our primitive friends? Both of them are trying to explain the same event. They're both understanding the rain did not come. But they look at it in an entirely different way. One looks at it with the vision of an immediate cause, that there must be some immediate cause which has determined the rain to come. The other looks for some unseen cause, a more type of theoretical cause. Now, science is based on observation, we think. But actually, science is not purely observational. It's very theoretical. And in fact, there are no facts which are neutral facts. There are no observations which are neutral observations. In the field of physics today, it's a clear understanding now that the observer himself or herself and her instruments of observation influence what they observe. In quantum mechanics and in higher forms of physics, it is impossible not to influence the experiment. As soon as you begin to observe it, the instruments which are used for measurement or detection, they themselves influence what happens. So you can't get neutral facts. Even beyond this, how we interpret facts is also very important. Because there's no such thing as an uninterpreted fact. When a scientific experiment is performed, there is already a theory behind it. And the facts are being studied to either confirm or disconfirm the theory. There's already a clear theoretical understanding of what is expected to be there. And beyond all of this, there is a larger, all-encompassing understanding which we call a paradigm. Now the word paradigm shift, right, is a popular term. Have you heard that term? Paradigm shift? Paradigm shift means, just like there are some major paradigm shifts that took place. For example, when the Copernican revolution took place in science, there was a major shift. Newton brought in another major paradigm change in science. Darwin brought in a major paradigm shift in understanding in his theory of evolution. Freud brought in a major change in his understanding of psychoanalysis. So these major shifts are like revolutions. It's like here we had a coup that overthrew the prevailing government. It was overthrown, and a new government came in. So similarly, in science, there are some times where the facts cannot be explained by the prevailing paradigm or understanding. and the theories cannot explain things sufficiently, and gradually there are more and more anomalies or unexplainable circumstances which require a complete change in understanding. And it sweeps away to a large extent. It carries with it so much. So when people study facts, or when they say this is a fact, or they study and they observe different types of events, they do it with a paradigm understanding. There's a large paradigmatic background behind everything. And in fact, theories determine observation. Observations do not determine theory. That is not true. It's not at all true. In the theoretical structure of science, observations are determined by theory. It is a complete misnomer to say that first there are observations, then you make theories. That's not the way it works. First theories are made, and then observations either confirm or disconfirm the theory. Now, I want to make the point that this is very similar to how religion works. Religion works in the same way. Why do I say that? Because what is the equal of observations or facts of science in religion? It is experience. Religion has its experiences, just like what you saw here today, right? You're sitting in the audience and we're watching people. And while I was sitting there also among you, I was thinking, what are you all thinking about this? It was a very wild display. Right? First people were moving back and forth, then some people started to circle around over here, then some kids ran up on the stage, and then some people were jumping up and down. The song that they were singing was getting more and more intensified. Clearly there was some experience that the people who were doing the kirtan, the singing, the chanting, they were feeling some sort of religious experience. And we out there may or may not have been, but they were experiencing something. Now the question is that what is this experience and what determines this experience? In science, observations are in large part shaped by theory. In the same way, in religion, experience is shaped in large part by beliefs. The equal of theories of science in religion are beliefs. Right? We have certain beliefs, and the beliefs, you can also say beliefs and, philosophy. You want to say that. Beliefs and philosophy. Especially this type of religion, there's a lot of philosophy behind it. Can these people have this experience without first having their beliefs? Well, that's debatable. To some extent you can say yes, but I think everybody here is very well grounded in the beliefs. They know what they are supposed to experience. And in fact, experience takes place and it confirms what they believe. How does that sound to you? What praise everyone did. There's some truth to that, isn't it? In other words, you have read and you have heard from your spiritual master that by chanting the names of God, you will get a certain experience. Then you start to chant, and gradually you get that experience. So it confirms to you the belief you have. In the same way, science posits a theory, and then it performs an experiment, and it observes the results of that experiment, which may confirm the theory that they have. It's not the system, the structure is the same. That's my point. Very similar structure. Now, there are some differences. One difference is that science, generally, I'll give you another similarity. In both cases, there is you can say a group of persons who are part of a community. You can call it a language community of persons who speak the same language and who hold the same theories to be true in science. Similarly, in religion, there is a community of persons who speak the same language or have the same religious beliefs and hold the same understandings. So there's also, both have their own communities, right? The difference is that in science, scientific information is exchangeable very often between different parts of the scientific community, to some extent. To some extent. More so than in religion, because in religion, communities have a lot of difficulty often in exchanging experiences and agreeing on experiences. For example, a Hindu might say, God is Krishna, or they might say, Shiva is God. But if you go to a Christian and say, God is Shiva, or Shiva is God, or Krishna is God, will the Christian agree with that? No. That's a very significant difference. Amongst the scientific community, there are certain, theories which everyone will accept, intermurally, right? Across different types of scientific communities, they'll all accept that. But that is not the same amongst religious communities. So there's some differences like that. However, there may be some broad similarities. If we leave aside too many details. In order to get some kind of agreement amongst different religious communities, you have to sort of get a more wide focus, less focus, detailed focus. Because if you get into details, immediately there's going to be disagreement and differences. But there are some similarities. I would suggest to you that practically most religions would say, I'm not going to say that. I'll take it down. Traditionally, in regard to the weather and why rain has not come, traditionally, someone would, in a religious tradition, would have suggested somehow the rain has been held up because of God being displeased. If you read the Old Testament in the Bible, you see God chastising his people, wrathful God chastising his people, punishing them for their evil, as you said, their wrongdoing. In the Bhagavad Gita, right, it's like the Bible of the Hindus, the Bhagavad Gita, there's a verse where it is stated by Lord Krishna, Anat Bhavanti Bhutani, this is Sanskrit, Parjanya Anasambhavaha Yajnat Bhavati Parjanyo Yajna Karma Samudbhavaha. All living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, or sacrifice. And yajna is born of prescribed duties. Now here's a sequence, a chain of cause and effect. The final effect is all bodies are able to keep alive by eating grains. And you may say, well, I don't need to eat grains. That's not true. Some bodies don't eat grains. All right, but this is specifically about human bodies, then, let's say, although it says all living bodies. And we could probably demonstrate that. But let's talk about human beings. Animals eat grains. They eat plants and grains. So whether you eat the grains directly, or whether you eat the animals that eat the grains, you are existing because of grains. And the grains can only grow by rain. It's not possible without rain. Or some derivative. I mean, you have to have water to nourish plants. There's no other way they'll be nourished. Sunshine, moonshine, and water. And fertilizer. But water is essential. You can do without almost anything else. You can't do without water. Now, the part, nobody's going to argue this. I don't think you'll argue these two parts of the sequence. But the next part is debatable. The next part says, rain is produced by yajna, sacrifice. Now, sacrifice means some ritual performance, religious ritual performance. In anthropology, when we studied anthropology, when they study primitive tribes, and that's what the anthropologists in the past have done. Nowadays they study not just primitive tribes, they study, modern tribes also who live in cities. They don't call them tribes anymore, but they live in cities, and they study city living also. But going back to when anthropology, especially the study of religion anthropology, began with the study of various persons who were relatively untouched by, quote, civilization. And there was a distinction made between magic and religious activities. Now, magic has the purpose of counteracting or evil influences of various types, whereas religion has the purpose of establishing ordinary, normal events, the necessities of life. So in terms of religion, in terms of getting grain and rain, that was a religious event. There was a religious person in the community, in the tribe, that had to make some ritual in order to ensure a good crop. And this is true. All the different tribes that were studied. They studied tribes in Australia. They studied tribes in Africa. They studied tribes in this area, Polynesian area, in large archipelagos. They studied all of these different places. And invariably, they find the same thing. There is a certain person within the tribe that performs a ritual of some sort before the time of planting. And they never plant without doing that. Okay? So here, this is very difficult today. We don't do that. Nobody's doing that any longer, and yet there's rain in most places. Now there's no rain here. So people may argue that what's the use of this ritual? That was for superstitious, superstitious ancient people or backwards people. But today, just give it enough water and enough fertilizer and it'll grow. You don't need to do ritual. So this puts religion up against the wall. Because religion has always existed because of its ability to fulfill a need. Now, is the need of religion simply psychological? Is it just a type of useful fiction that it doesn't really mean anything, but if it helps you to believe something, then go ahead and do it. Because that's generally how many people today think, that religion is simply a useful fiction. It's not true, but it's useful, so go ahead and do it. A devout person will not think that way. Bhagavad Gita, for example, says something quite different. It says that there's a direct connection between ritual or sacrifice and rain. In the Hindu tradition, there's a god in charge of rain. Does anyone know what his name is? You want to consult each other again? Anybody want to guess who it is? All of you devoted Hindus? Indra Dev. Yes, Indra. Correct. Indra is supposed to be the god of rain, thunderbolts, running also, he has a thunderbolt weapon. But where is Indra? Have you done your Indra Puja? Last year nobody did any Indra Puja, but the rain came. And this year nobody did any Indra Puja, and the rain didn't come. So if we look at it scientifically, we can't say that because we did puja to Indra, the rain came. Because sometimes, we don't do it in any case, sometimes it comes and sometimes it doesn't come. Now how are we going to explain this Bhagavad Gita verse? If we can't demonstrate that this verse has some value, people will stop reading Bhagavad Gita. They have already stopped reading Bhagavad Gita. If I ask you when the last time you looked at the Bhagavad Gita, you may say to me, I never looked at the Bhagavad Gita. And similarly, of course, people read the Bible, but they read it for a different purpose. This is a very practical statement here. Rain requires yajna, sacrifice. Now, let me ask some Hare Krishna people in the audience who are in the back again. Now, we move them back. Since you're all so ready to give us the answers, shouting out, may you please explain why it is? See, why is it that the rain came last year, it didn't come this year, and in either case there was no sacrifice? Can any Hare Krishna philosopher out there give us the answer?
The chanting of the devotees all over the world.
She's from America, just to tell you where, so you can start laughing at the countries also. Americans are so intelligent, but you can see what kind of answers they give. And I told you, Americans are very superstitious people. 95% of Americans say they worship God, and you can see why. Now, here we have our Australian devotee, and his answer is karma. He says, the reason why it didn't rain this year is because Fiji has got bad karma this year. Now they're laughing at that also. Could you give us a little bit better explanation, please?
Because of the continuing sinful activity.
No?
Not necessarily that one country might have acted particularly this year, but it's going back many, many years in the past.
But let me ask you a question. If it rains next year, does it mean suddenly that there was good karma? Are you really going to say that? I mean, I'm going to nail you on your philosophy since you're repeating what you've read, but let's see if you really believe that. I think that the people in Fiji are going to do the same thing this year that they did last year. And they'll do the same thing next year that they did this year. And it may rain next year. Now, according to you, karma is the cause of rain. But the karma, which also means the actions, are more or less the same every year. You're starting to shake your leg. You're getting nervous. The introducer said, how we're going to talk about how to solve problems. Well, we have to first understand what the nature of the problems. And so far, we got two very different answers here. One person said the good actions from people in another part of the world influences Fiji, and you're saying something here influences. And anybody else give me an answer? Yes.
In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that
From India, via America, now he's an American national. But he's still speaking like an Indian. quoting Bhagavad Gita. He says, God maintains the living beings by sending rain. But then I want to know why he's not sending rain this year. If you say that God maintains the living beings by sending rain, why isn't he sending rain to Fiji?
Still the people are living.
Huh?
Still the people are living easily.
The people are living there anyway. That's what, but they don't get any rain for 3-4 years, they won't live. The Bhagavad Gita says rain comes from sacrifice. Now, why didn't the rain come this year? Huh? No sacrifice. And why did it come last year? It's a big problem. Someone opened this book, Bhagavad Gita, on this page, and you have to help me to answer this question. Okay, here we got a hand in the back. No, wait a moment. Yes, we're just right. Loudly.
It's true that the Supreme Lord fulfilled the desire of the British souls in the form of rain, but he also allowed them to forget if they want to forget. And he allowed them to remember. So obviously, they perform sacrifice when they take God for granted. And we can involve some sense gratification. They tend to forget God. A little reminder is sometimes necessary. So the point of that is to say, treat that sacrifice and begin to remember God.
Okay.
Treat that sacrifice.
Okay. I'll repeat this because I heard it clearly. And I think that of the three answers, your answer is by far the best answer. And there are many philosophers in Western tradition that give the type of answer you've given. And I think it's about the best we can do under the circumstance. I think it's a decent answer. His answer is that everything is ultimately under the control of God. And that God sometimes gives one sort of action or result, and another time gives a different action or result, with the purpose of teaching people to be more dependent on Him. In other words, sometimes He withholds rain so that people will pray to Him or think of Him. And sometimes He sends rain so that people will thank Him, right? Express their gratitude towards Him. That's basically, I think, what you're saying. This is the moral argument. It's part of the moral argument to the existence of God. That God is the cause, the ultimate cause of morality, our sense of rightness. And it is right that rain should come. It is right that we should have proper, abundant crops. And therefore, God must be the cause of that abundance, because God is moral, and He will support morality. So God must be trying to teach us something. And that this is basically what all the scriptures show, that sometimes God sends, plenty, and sometimes He withholds. Now, science, of course, will have a problem with this answer. Because the biggest problem is we cannot see God. That is a very big problem. We cannot see God. And we are trained to some degree with a type of empirical demand. We must be able to have proof. Therefore, I said I want to speak about the unseen hand of God. What is it that we require as a proof to be able to believe in God? What would we have to have happen to make us be certain that there is God? I think this is a very key question. Because your answer is a good answer, and in fact, one of the three could be accepted as an acceptable answer if you believe in God. But the question is, what is required to make us believe in God? If you say, well, people go to school because they believe that there's something they have to learn that they can't learn from their fathers and mothers. Now, if you say, well, at least I learned about God from my father and mother, but there's a problem with that, because we already acknowledge that there are many things we cannot learn from our father and mother, and we must therefore go to school. So that very basis of going to school, to some degree, diminishes the authority of father and mother. That's a fact. Authority is shared now. In the old days, the father and the mother, the family was the authority. That authority structure has been spread out very widely now. It's diffused. So we need to have some sort of confirming evidence of God's existence to be able to place our faith in God. Now, what would be that confirming evidence? That's what I want to ask. What would you require in order to be able to be certain that God exists? And can you get that evidence to be certain that God exists? That thing or that person to whom I'm praying must exist, especially if the same prayer, same experiment, if you will, is being made by many persons, and they're all getting the same experience. And this is really why people believe in God, perhaps more than any other reason. That there are beliefs which state that if you pray in such and such way, you will get the following experience. People get that experience. It goes back to what I said. Theories determine observation. Beliefs determine experience. Now, someone may say, well, those are just man-made beliefs. They don't really prove that God exists. It's just, like Marx said, the opiate of the men. This is an opiate. Religion is simply an opiate. But then, if we will agree that whether it's experience or observation, both are determined by either theory or beliefs, then the question is, what makes you more satisfied and happy? I think we have to come to this point, because everyone is searching for happiness. So what makes you more satisfied or happy? Here's a person praying to God and feeling an experience, a type of religious experience, a type of perhaps even ecstasy. Right? There's a drug now in America, isn't it? Called ecstasy.
Yes, great.
Is it in Fiji also? Huh? Yes or no? Fiji people are very fortunate, because in America there's a big problem with this ecstasy pills, right? People want ecstasy, and they think I can get it with a drug. But religious people get ecstasy by getting ecstatic about God. They become satisfied and happy. What is an advantage? Let's look at the advantages. I think we have to approach it another way. What is the difference between a society that worships God and an atheistic society? Is there a difference? Generally, religion includes morals, right? Like in Christianity, they have what? The 10 Commandments, right? Thou shalt not kill, right? Thou shalt not lie or steal. These are morals, and they go with religion. In Hinduism also, we have so many morals that go with our religion, like respect your father and mother, tell the truth. Right? Those are morals. Do you think a society without religion can be a moral society? Is it possible? Okay. Our friend says, no, it's not possible. Do we have any experience of it? Let's look at China. And China has, for the last 50 years, been a country which has pretty much tried to wipe out religion. Any of you been to China? No. Well, anyway, it's a country which has tried to deny religion. But I'll tell you some interesting facts about China. Until the last 10 years, there was no prostitution there. There was no drug problems there. They did remove a great many evils. But there's some other big problems. They introduced a philosophy which, created quite a few separate problems that have come about. And now those same evils are coming back with a vengeance. There's a recurring drug problem, a recurring problem with prostitution, but many more other problems are also coming in. I think that your answer is correct, that history has shown that societies that are religious tend to be moral societies, more moral than societies which abandon religion. Now, what is it like to live in a moral society? Very difficult. Very difficult. In a society with no moral principles, what is a disease today which has come about due to immorality? AIDS. And it's very interesting that everybody is looking for the cure to AIDS. But, what is the simple cure to AIDS? The real basic cure is morality, to a great extent. It's not the total answer, but it is a large part of the answer. And people are trying to get a cure to AIDS without that answer. Because that answer requires restraint, self-control. And that's difficult. A society that has no morals is very difficult to live in. How do children grow properly if they have no morality? Every one of you has been brought up with moral understanding by your parents. But if you look at what the morality is, it all comes from religion. Now, I'm trying to give you another way of understanding the value of the idea of God. If you take God out of the picture, can you have religion? No, very difficult, isn't it? I mean, it could be argued, but it is ultimately, I think, difficult. Now, let's go one step further. If we accept that there is God a person or impersonal? Is it a spiritual person or no person? Can something be, is God the basis of morality? Do morals originate with God? How can something be the source of morality without being personal? How can it be an impersonal source of morality? Is it possible or not? Your moral teaching came from whom? Your father and mother first? Are they persons? Where did they get the teaching from? Where did they get it from? Where does it begin from? Huh? From God. So is God a person or impersonal? Okay, if he's a person, then what kind of person is he? Is it a he or a she? Both? Nowadays, what is the most popular view? I think both, right? Now, you'll be very happy to know that our Hindu religion has said all the time that God is he and she. If you look at our Hindu religion, what does it say about, there's always God and the Shakti. Right? Shakti means just like Who is the Shakti of Shiva? Parvati. Is Shiva ever without Parvati? Okay. Who is the Shakti of Narayan? Lakshmi, right? We say Lakshmi Narayan. Who is the Shakti of Ram? Who is the Shakti of Krishna? Okay, so here's God is he and she. Correct? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, now you just said Lakshmi Narayan, Parvati and Shiv, Sita and Ram, and Radha and Krishna. You told me 4 different couples. Now I'm getting confused. Which one of them is God? All of them? Huh? Anybody have an answer for this? All of you Hindus, now you should make you close your eyes because you're going to look at everybody else's vote. I should be the only one to see who's got hands. How many people say they're all God? Raise your hand. Well, there you go. I don't even have to ask the others. That's the majority. Huh. You know, many years ago, in 1980, I was here in Suva, and I made a video right in Suva. We had a small center here, and we had our altar, and I put all the pictures of all the gods on the altar, and then I asked the audience, which one is God? And each person, I had everybody up there. I had Jesus' picture there, Sai Baba's picture there, Shiva's picture, Ganesh's picture, somebody's mother's picture was there. She got a lot of votes. Family votes. So, we made a video called God, Demigods, and Incarnations, Avatars. And then I explained what is the relationship between each one of them. And I quoted from our Hindu scriptures. And my conclusion was that they all are God, but not fully God. But one of them was fully God. They're all God, but one of them was fully God. And I gave evidence from different scriptures to make a long story short. And for example, Bhagavad Gita is a standard Hindu scripture that practically all Hindus accept. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says very clearly that he is the supreme God, and all others are subservient to him. That's the statement of the Bhagavad Gita. The Hare Krishna movement is based on that conviction, that Krishna is God complete, and others are partial manifestations of Krishna. So that if Krishna is worshipped, automatically all others will be worshipped. But if any others are worshipped, it's not guaranteed that Krishna himself will be worshipped. Do you know what the first of the 10 Commandments is? Does anyone know the first commandment of the 10 Commandments? God with all thy heart. What is the second commandment? Thou shalt not have any other gods before me. Christianity, Islam, right? Muslims, and Jews, they're called monotheists. They worship one God. What is the biggest complaint Christians and Muslims have with Hindus about their worship? Demigods, right? Isn't it? Well, they don't have that problem with us, because we agree one God. We agree one God. We respect all the different gods, but we call them demigods, devata. What is that word, devata? There's the word in Sanskrit, devata. Devata means devi, and devata that means a demigod or demigoddess. Semi-god. What is the word for the supreme God? Bhagavan. The word Bhagavan means one who has all opulence fully, completely. Now I know some Bhavas are called Bhagavan, but I'm not talking about any Bhavas now. I'm talking about God, right? Not some human being who suddenly appears somewhere in South India, and some people bow down because, he can make some magic. Everybody says, he must be God. Well, if he's God, let him come to Fiji and make it rain. That's not a big thing for God to do. I'm talking about actually God. The Hare Krishna's people, they understand the Bhagavad Gita's message is that thou shalt have no other God except me. And this is actually what Krishna taught. Have you ever seen a picture of Krishna lifting a hill, Govardhan? You know that picture where Krishna is like this? His left hand, right, is up in the air, one finger. You seen it? Okay. You know why he was lifting that hill? Because so much rain came. The rain came because of a reason. There's a reason why. Indra sent devastating rain because Krishna stopped his father from doing Indra Puja. His father said, Krishna was a small boy. He said, why are you making all these arrangements for a puja? His father said, because we are going to worship Indra to ensure that the rain comes so that we have good crops. Then Krishna said, there's no need to do that. He wanted to teach his father that there should not be the worship of demigods. Now you may say, well, we have to worship demigods. But Krishna says, don't worship demigods. In the last part of the Bhagavad Gita, you know what he says? He says in Sanskrit, Sarva Dharmam Parityaja Mam Ekam Saranam Vraja. He says, give up all other forms of worship and worship me. He says those who worship the demigods will become attracted to those demigods and may go to the demigods. But those who worship me will come to me. So if you have $1 million, you have $1,000, you have $100, you have $1. If you put water on the root of the tree, every leaf and branch will get water. If you put food in the stomach, every limb of your body will get nourished. Well, Krishna is that $1 million. Krishna is that root of the tree. Krishna is like the stomach. He's the center. He's not another God. He's the center. And if you look at how Hinduism has spread all over the world today, there's only one way to spread all over the world, and that's by this Hare Krishna movement. Otherwise, it didn't spread very widely. Just like here, you saw so many, people from different countries chanting Hare Krishna. What other form of Hinduism has spread like this? These people who were chanting it are all coming from very good, respectable families. They have professionals. 2 of them are lawyers. Some of them are business people. They are respected teachers. They're respectable people. this Hinduism has spread through the Hare Krishna movement. Now, when we went back to India with our Guru Prabhupada, in 1970, I went with him. People asked him, how did you convert these people? How did you get American people and European people to become Hindus? He said, they asked him, what magic did you have? He said, I didn't have any magic. But you think that somehow Krishna is a Hindu god. But he's not a Hindu god. He is God. He is the Paramatma within the heart of every living being. So I have just taught them how to worship God in a personal form. You ask today, Christian, who is the father of Jesus? You'll never get an answer. They don't know. They don't know. They know Jesus is the Son of God. Ask them, who is the Father? Who's God? If Jesus is his Son, who is the Father? Now, if they say Jesus, the Son and the Father are one, I'm also one with my Father, but still he's called the Father and I'm his Son. Who's the Father? You ask a Muslim, tell me something about Allah. Very difficult to get personal information. It may be that this is the only religion where you can actually get the name and address of God. I'm saying that in a half-joking way. Where you can find out who God is. What does God look like? What does God do? And is that important? Yes. If you tell me you have a friend and you want me to meet that friend, you can tell me so much about your friend. What he or she looks like, what is their favorite food, who are their family members and friends, where I can meet them. If I say to you, worship God, or you tell me you want to worship God, I've got to have information about God. A book like this gives that information. It gives you the name and address of God. It tells you details. How is it in our business? Material creation. He plays his flute. He enjoys with his friends. And he gets his expansion, his representative, Vishnu and Brahma and Shiva, to do all the dirty work. Another question. And the present cycle is called Kali Yuga. This is the Kali Yuga. It will last for another 427,000 years. And then will begin the next cycle, Satya Yuga. Then Treta Yuga, then Dwapara Yuga. Yuga means age. And again, Kali Yuga will come. And when these four have gone on for 100 times, that's called the Divya Yuga. For 1,000 of these cycle of four. Then there's a partial destruction, annihilation of the universe, but not full. And when 1,000 of these make up the day of Brahma, and 1,000 make up his night, and he has 30 such nights make 1 month, 12 such months make 1 year, and he has 100 years of life. The total duration is, what's the number? Remember? 311 trillion, 40 billion years is the duration. According to the Vedas, the duration of the universe is 311 trillion, 40 billion years. Now, you're going to disprove that? Okay. That's such a good figure that my professors at the university always say, at least your Vedas are closer than the Bible. Because the Bible says everything began 6,000 years ago. which is, obviously not correct. And according to the Vedas, we've gone through about half that time. So you still have another, was I right? 311 trillion. You still have another 150 trillion years to go. You want to wait around to check it out? See if my calculation is right? Better to go back and be with Krishna. Don't wait for that. Another question. Who's got the microphone now? Oh, wait a moment.
Relates something on incarnation.
Yes, please.
I believe this idea that Lord Krishna was the eighth, or is the eighth incarnation.
Mm.
Now, if Lord Krishna is eighth incarnation,
how can he be the source of the incarnation? Okay, that's a very good question. Is that your question?
if we hold this belief, then there are several more before him.
Okay.
Then why is Lord Krishna regarded as a full God and not his servant?
Very good. That's an excellent question. The question is, according to popular Hindu view, there are 10 incarnations, Das Avatar, right? Of which Krishna is the 8th. Actually, sometimes it's said Krishna and Balaram. Krishna's brother also sometimes said. But same thing, same point you're making. So Krishna is the 8th avatar. There must be 7 before him. How can Krishna be the full God, or even let us say the original God, if he's already 8 in number? That's a very good question. Sometimes the original God wants to come himself. And so when he comes himself, he takes a turn within his Das Avatar. Because he comes in a sequence as 8, we have to understand those 10 avatars, they come again. It's not that they only come once. It's not that Ram came before Krishna, but Ram will come again. As the Sakya comes again, Ram will come again. All of the avatars repeat again and again. So it's not that, we can say one is first, another one is second. They come in that sequence. And Krishna is the 8th, as you have rightly said. But that does not prove that he's not the original Godhead. Because he is the source of the avatars. But he comes as one of them also. So that we can have some understanding of what he looks like and what his lila, or his activities are. If Krishna never came as an avatar, how would we know about it? Now you have to see what Krishna does that makes him different than others. And I'll give you a very simple idea. Very interesting point. You know the word rasa, R-A-S-A, ras, taste. Like we say, the taste or something, right? So this ras, this taste, there are different types of tastes in relationships with people. Now I'm not talking of taste of food, but I'm using the word taste because this is a theory of how people relate. For example, someone relates like let's say, a human being and an animal have a type of relationship. Or, let me give you another example. The earth that we walk on, or the sky, and us, we have a relationship. What kind of relationship? It's a kind of neutral relationship. It's not much personal exchange. As compared to a servant and his master, where there's much more personal exchange than the earth and a human being, in one sense. Now let's go to the next type of relationship, friends. It gets closer than the servant and the master. Let's go one step further. Parents and children. The love becomes even more intense. And finally, between lovers, a man and a woman, husband and wife, the love becomes even tighter. Am I right? This is a theory of rust between relationships. Now, if you study the different Das avatars, you will see that all of them, they only have two types of rust. The neutral type and the servant to the master. Now, I know you will say Sita and Ram are husband and wife. But how did Sita see Ram? She saw him as her master. Fully. She was always in that mood that Ram is my master. Even Dasarath, the father of Ram, he also had so much respect for Ram. Everyone did. Look at Lakshman. So even in Ram Lila, still there is hope. You can't get beyond that master-servant. There's something of husband and wife. There's something of brother and brother. But the master-servant mood is there. Now look at Krishna and see what Krishna's relationship is. Krishna's mother and father. You know their name, Vasudeva and Devaki. And in Vrindavan, Nanda and Yasoda. Nanda and Yasoda are telling Krishna, Krishna, you're my child. They don't think Krishna is a master. They don't think Krishna is God. Krishna has his friends and brother. They fight with him, wrestle with him. Sometimes they defeat him and Krishna has to put them on his shoulders and ride them around. Look at Radha and the gopis. They treat Krishna, they joke with him. They have no sense that Krishna is God. All the rest is there. Now, I'm showing you this. Therefore, Krishna is called Rasaraj. And no other incarnation does like this. So the theoreticians, the aesthetes, those persons who study this type of aesthetics, they have declared that of all the 10 avatars, the Krishna avatar is best because it brings out the rust the most. It thickens the rust the most. Because Krishna is the origin of all the avatars. Krishna is a full manifestation. I'm answering your question. Why I said Krishna is the full manifestation of God. The devotees of Krishna are so intense. Their love is so intense that they forget that he's God. Now, which do you think Krishna likes more? To be worshipped as God or to be worshipped as somebody's son? Which would be nicer for you? To always be treated as God or as someone's son and daughter? Someone's friend, someone's lover. Which has more appeal? Which would attract you more? God? No. No. Take the Prime Minister of Fiji. You say, Mr. Prime Minister. You know, you think he's going to say yes. But when his wife calls him, you know, immediately he'll turn to her. Being called the Prime Minister, so many people will address him like that. But as soon as he hears his wife calling, or the children calling, immediately he gives attention to them. Which do you think appeals to Krishna more? To be worshipped as God, or to be worshipped with love as someone's child, as someone's friend, as someone's lover? Which attracts God more? You still get love. Love attracts, not fear. Not fear. Most people worship God how? With fear. And they worship God with a motive for something, right? God, give me good grades in my exams. God, give me a new, video recorder or some material thing, a new car. That's not love, that's business. So we have to understand Krishna appears to be the eighth avatar, but actually he's the origin of the avatars. Another question. Where's the microphone? Okay, yes.
Lord Krishna is father from praying to Lord Indra. Then why is it that the people still, especially Hindus, still pray to Lord Indra for rain?
The question is that Lord Krishna held Govardhan with his left pinky finger and discouraged his father from worshipping Indra. Then why is it that Hindus today still worship Indra? I don't know. I also wonder why. Why don't they do what Krishna told them? Don't bother worshiping Indra. If you know the Prime Minister, you don't have to know anyone else. If you have a personal friendship with the Prime Minister, your job is done. You don't have to go to any other minister. You don't have to go to any other person. The Prime Minister can do everything for you. Similarly, if you worship God, you don't have to worship separately any demigods. So I don't know why they're doing this. You better ask those Hindus who worship Indra why they're doing this. I don't know why they do it. They're wasting their time.
So what type of sacrifices did you really mean when you said that we have to offer sacrifices to God for rain?
What kind of sacrifice? This sacrifice that we do here. What you have seen, the chanting of the holy names of God is called the Yuga Dharma. It is said to be the sacrifice especially meant for the Kali Yuga, to chant together with others the holy names of God is called the Yuga Dharma. And if this sacrifice is done regularly, according to our scriptures, there will be rain. Now we'll see if that's true or not. But it takes a lot of sacrifice. One chanting session with a few people up here chanting and the rest of you laughing isn't going to make it rain. I mean, if you really want some rain for Fiji, you got to chant also. And not just tonight, but you got to chant regularly. According to our scripture, there will be rain. Now you have to find out if it's true. If you don't chant and it doesn't rain, then we could always say, well, it's because you didn't chant. And if it does rain, we'll say because we chanted. It rained. Either way, we're going to say that. Religious people can always explain everything their way. Another question. Yes?
Are souls created by the God? And if yes, then why are they godless in the center of the earth to live?
Could you repeat your question? Because I could not understand.
Are souls created by God? And if they are, then why are they godless and then sent to the earth to live away from Him?
Okay. I believe you said it. Are souls created by God? And if they are, why were they sent to earth to reincarnate? Correct? Okay. No. Yes and no. So, yes and no. First of all, is the soul eternal? Yes? If the soul is eternal, then how could it ever be created? Creation means beginning, but we say the soul is eternal, so there cannot be a beginning to the soul. But we can say that all souls come from God. But we would not say God creates the soul, because the soul is eternal and God is eternal. But the source of the soul is God. Now, why do they come to earth? Because they wanted to come here, to be separate from God. Somehow, we had a desire to be separate from God. So God fulfills our desire by creating a material world where we can live as if we are separate and without Him. we can forget about him for some time. And when we again remember him fully, then we can get out of this world. We get out of the cycle of reincarnation, and we can return to be with God eternally. And we will never make this mistake again. Who has the microphone? I pray to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, the rain will come. Yes.
Oh.
Did you ask me how? Is that what you said? Because then Krishna will tell Indra, please send the rain. No. Krishna will look at, I believe that God hears our prayer. I believe that God is a person who can hear, and furthermore, He is a supreme person with supreme power. So He can make rain. He does not do it directly, but He has His agents who can make rain. And how they make rain is the way science explains. Now, if you say to me, well, when you chant, you'll see if it rains. I told you before, there has to be enough chanting. There's a lot of other things also. There are many sinful activities being performed. That what he said, I believe, that there's karma, national karma. That a nation can do much evil, and then they have to get a bad reaction, which may be no rain. And America has its own bad karma. Maybe they have rain, but they have other problems. Who has the microphone? It's moving. Someone had the microphone. Is there life after death? And if so, do we meet the God personally? Yes, there is life after death, because life is in the soul, and the soul is eternal. What is death? What does death mean? Death means the soul is leaving the body. So the soul is always alive. So the soul is not birth or death. The body is born, the body dies, but the soul remains the same. There's always life in the soul. It just takes another birth. Now, where it takes another birth depends on your consciousness, what you are thinking at the moment when you die. So, are you going to meet God when you die? That depends on what you're thinking of at that moment. If you can fix your mind on God at the moment of death, then you go back and you directly meet Him person to person. That's why we're chanting. We are chanting to practice so that at the moment of death we can chant or hear the chanting and immediately remember God, and we will go to God. That is how yoga works. Yoga means union or connection or link or yoke. To yoke or connect the soul with God. And the process of yoga for this Kali Yuga is mantra yoga. Mantra yoga. Chanting the mantra. Mantra, like the Hare Krishna mantra. Mantra. Mind purifying. Mind delivering. It frees the mind. Mind freeing. Frees the mind from all kinds of material things so that you can remember God. But most people, when they die, what do they remember? Money, or their family, or maybe they don't remember anything, they're unconscious. Then where do they go in the next birth? That depends on their thoughts at the time of death. Therefore, reincarnation. We want to stop reincarnation. We want to stop this birth and death, birth and death, birth and death. The only way is you have to go back to be with God. Therefore, you have to practice chanting. If you don't practice now, and when you take, just like your test, you take an exam. If you don't study, how can you pass your exam? If you don't practice chanting and remembering God now when you're alive and awake, at the moment of death, you know how troublesome it is. You won't be able to say, okay, now I'll chant Hare Krishna. You haven't practiced chanting Hare Krishna, and when you're getting ready to die, you are not going to chant Hare Krishna. Practice makes perfect. So every day you should practice chanting. You see, we have these bags. If you look around, you'll see all the people here that have got a bag. Inside the bag is beads, chanting beads. We practice chanting because we can't always find someone to do all of this, right? And if you do this, you'll get kicked out of the school anyway. So we do the quiet chanting on the beads. Each bead, there's 108 beads. On each bead, we use it for counting. So we do all the way around, it takes about 5 to 10 minutes. Chant. Each bead, the full mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. And you do it quietly, just for yourself. And you can go around and around. And every day we do about 2 hours of this. You say, that's a lot. Well, it just depends on how much you want to determine where you go when you die. If you think that's important, then you spend 2 hours. If you think it doesn't matter, then okay, carry on the way you're doing. You take your chances. I'm taking mine. I'm putting my trust on this. If you think that you can do without it, that's your choice. We'll see what happens when each of us dies. I'll write you a letter and let you know about it. Whichever one of us dies first can write the other one back. You'll write me a letter saying, you're right, I should have chanted. Here I am in a bird's body. I'm sitting on the tree in my backyard where I used to live, now I'm a bird. I should have remembered your advice. And I hope I will be with Krishna. I'll say, where are you? Here I am, but where are you? Who's got the microphone there? Oh, okay. Let's make this the last question, and then we'll do some wild chanting. This time, the chanting will be more wild than the last time. This time, that first time everybody was going the same direction. The next time we will get more ecstatic. There's creation, maintenance, and destruction. They all depend on each other. Yet, how can one be more important? I think you mean because Krishna must be doing one of the three. And we said Krishna is more important. But I didn't say Krishna was doing one of the three. I said Vishnu is maintaining, Brahma is creating, and Shiva is destroying. I didn't include Krishna in those three. I said that Krishna is the beginning of the source. And he expands himself as Vishnu. And Vishnu, I used the example of the candles and the flames. So Krishna is the first flame. He's the first candle. For creation, maintenance, and destruction, he doesn't dirty his hands. He does it through his expanded representatives, Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva. Okay, and you can surrender the microphone. Now call up our chanters. And this time, look, before anybody comes up, let's have a practice. Ready, go. Can everybody read on the board? Now you all move closer. Now can we practice a couple of times? Please repeat after me. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Wait, those of you in the back, only the first 6, 7, 8 rows can chant. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. You already know this. So now when we do the singing, please, for the sake of the rain in Fiji. This is a rain dance, right?
Rain.
Okay, chanters, please come.
Stop and students or critical of the education. Like to take his holiness
Tamal Krishna Goswami.
For coming, taking this time out and being here with us tonight. And I'm sure that all of us has learned something, a lot out of his inspiring speech. And I'm sure everybody is going to utilize his lecture in their daily life. Thank you.
everyone's attention to a book which I will sign if you purchase a copy. I'll personally sign it in the back, which I think you'll find very interesting. It touches on subjects which we have talked about tonight. I also would like to request and invite you to associate with our society here in Fiji. We have regular meetings. You can find out timings and places and try to take off this process of chanting the holy names of the Lord and study books like Bhaktivedanta. Thank you very, very much for attending tonight's program. Hare Krishna.